Welcome everyone. Just to remind you, we are live streaming to YouTube. I would like to welcome some guests to our meeting tonight. Today and tomorrow, Weymouth Town Council has been honoured to host a study of visits from colleagues in Northamptonshire. I understand from the clerk that today has been very successful with some good discussions and learning on both sides. I'd like to welcome, and I have got the pronunciation name here, Councillor Mark Pengelly, Councillor Martin Ruby from Corby Town Council, and Felicity Ryan, Councillor Jane Birch from Northampton Town Council, and Clerk Stuart Carter, and Danny Moody, Chief Executive from Northants Association of Local Councils. So a warm welcome to you all. There's no pressure there. You're all getting a good look at what we do. I'd also like to welcome our newly elected Town Councillor for Weymouth Way Valley, Councillor Matt Bell. Welcome, if it's not too scary. And we're shoving you in straight with budgets as your first meeting. Also, welcome to Mr. Farn. We've heard that tomorrow is a milestone birthday for you. I'm assuming it's the big 4-0. So we'd like to all wish you a happy birthday. Town Council, yes. Okay, so before I move on, I'd like to see if anybody would like to put themselves forward as vice chair to help me out up here. And if not, any volunteers? Oh, they're all quiet, come on.
I'll do it too.
So can you agree with that?
No.
Challenge it, no. Get on up here. No, Mr. Barn, you can't challenge it.
I challenge it by going to self, Lord. Careful.
You want to do it?
No. Mr. Farm telling councillors to shut up there would be a really good thing to say.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the apologies for absence. We have apologies received so far from Councillor Leaving, Councillor Harris, Councillor Weller. Can I just say that all those who are sick, we do wish a very speedy recovery. We have got a few councillors who are struggling right now. Yeah, can I get the further apologies, please, if there are any? Yeah. We've got apologies from Councillor James, Councillor Handy, and Councillor Ken Watley. Thank you. So can I get a proposal for that? To approve the apologies. And a seconder? Councillor Gray, Councillor. Correct. All those in favour?
I make that unanimous, Chair. Thank you.
No,
It's unanimous.
Okay, so next on declarations of interest. Does anybody want to declare anything?
We've had no prior declarations of interest, Chair, and no dispensation has been brought for this meeting.
And so badly want to say declare something called forever hold your peace. Okay, so minutes of last meeting. I'm going to assume that you've all had a look and been able to have a gander at them. So I'd like to just agree the minutes for the last meeting. Do I need a seconder? Propose them, please. That's the head. Seconder. All those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, Chair.
Any against?
No.
Any abstentions?
1 abstention, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Councillor questions. Do we have any councillor questions?
We've had none pre-notified, Chair.
Okay, on to town mayor's announcements. As we know, Councillor Weaving is really unwell at the moment, so I do wish her a speedy recovery. So she won't be announcing any of the things that she might have done over Christmas. But as you may well know, Councillor Weller has been ill over the Christmas period, and sends her apologies for tonight's meeting. She wanted us to say to everyone, thank you for the lovely flowers and for the good wishes from everyone. The team at Dorset County Hospital have been tremendous. I'm trying my very best to follow doctor's orders, which is to rest, rest, rest. And I'd like to say thank you to Councillor Hamilton for keeping us updated and passing on the best wishes to Kate. And we do wish Kate a speedy recovery, and I have to say, get off Facebook. Okay? You must be, yeah, we're watching that. You must be resting, okay? Okay, moving on. Are there any public questions?
What questions do you have?
Okay, we're going for it. Mr. Barr. Okay.
It's just, now, with this council and the ministry up in Dorchester. The fact is, we've lost track of what's going on here. Since it took over 3 years ago, the unitary up there is like a Gestapo up there. I go up, you said about go up there, you've got to write a letter out beforehand so they can make up excuses afterwards, because some criticised here the other day about your funding here and how you're making money, you're trying to make money. But the thing is, up Dorchester and that cabinet up there, they waste thousands. Do they? How much did they waste? I'm not saying what, but I'll just look one side or something. How much did they waste on that child's care home in Dorchester? Billions, I would say thousands. And the man's here, and you know what I'm talking about, and he criticised you lot on there, right? And there's another issue too. I walk around this town now with one hit here on town, and I clean up drains and just clear out drains and that. And the amount of drains for the area I just film right now, I give you on a regular basis. I do my bit. But outside of the Tories, and no one's saying a bit political here, outside of Dorchester Road there 2 drains, it's soil right up to the top. They go in and out there every time, but it's not this. It's not their job. Whose job is it? It's that, isn't it? It's in my job to look at the drain. You can come out and look down the drain, or they can come out and look at all them in their offices. But they don't do. We all should be doing the jobs. All the jobs here, like I go around and do. The boys used to say, fortunately, on there, that you know, I spent ages going into town. She could be a half a mile in town before I go. But we should all be doing these things. But at the moment, no one seems to be doing everything. It seems to be like this. It's all everybody else's job. We need, and when I come down here and talk to you about it, you say, oh, that's Dorchester, that's Dorchester. But then nowadays with Dorchester, you've got to write, what I said earlier, you've got to write a letter out in there when you dispute it. And what I do then is say, oh no, Mr. Barn, that's not correct. You can't say that. You can't do this. So my hands are tied after 25, 30 years. I've enjoyed it. But then we had a lucky squeak when we was down to Guildhall, when Mr. Goodwin was there, that he wanted to create a cabinet for Dorchester. I don't know whether any of you remember, for Weymouth. In the Guildhall, he wanted to create a cabinet, but it was shut down. Good, because we don't want dictatorship with this law. I know we got too many. Far too many here at the moment for Weymouth to run, and cost a lot of money. But we got to thin it out a little bit. You look right now, we've gone a little bit over the top. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown. Can I just remind you that most questions to our town council needs to be relevant for Weymouth Town Council, not Dorset Council. However, on to the trade issue, Jane, if you let Jane know where the issue is, she will send an email herself.
Straight direct to Mr. Carey, he's in charge of it.
And don't forget, you can always contact your Dorset councillor.
Does he want to
Councillor.
know his number? David Carey?
No, we're okay. We've got the information we need. Don't you worry, Mr. Barr. Okay.
Parts and everybody, you know.
Thank you for your feedback. We're going to move on now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, Councillor Northam, come on in.
Thank you very much. So I had occasion recently to submit a request for drains to be cleared on Dorchester Road. Up in my ward, Way Valley. And it was after there'd been a lot of tree leaves and branches blown down. And of course, we've got the cycleway there, so they were obstructing the cycleway. I submitted the form on the highways access. I got acknowledgement. I then got told that it had been passed to the team. who will be looking at it shortly. And a week or so later, I went back and I said, yeah, okay, so what's happening? And they came back, and the next day I saw them out my window in their little sweeper going up and down. So I went over to talk to them as to why they'd come out. They said, well, somebody's raised a request. Well, that's good. And I said, do you have a rota or a schedule as when you go around roads? And the answer is no. We wait until there are enough complaints and then we deal with them. So I just encourage all councillors to encourage members of the public to raise such requests, because they do get dealt with, and it's, if you like, it's almost volume driven. So if you just moan about it, nothing will happen. But if, like Mr. Farn, you make a formal statement, then you have a chance of getting something done. And lastly, you did say how much we cost. I think you've been told before, but I'll remind everyone, we only get £1,000 a year as councillors on Weymouth Town Council.
Not the case with individual members of lump sum.
Thank you.
Okay, we're not discussing
No, that's
that
fine.
now, okay, thank you. Right, moving on, we're gonna go straight into our agenda tonight. And first up is the HR contingent reserve budget, which Jane is going to introduce to us.
Thank you, Chair. Members would have read the report. I won't go through it in detail, but this item does come recommended to you by the Finance and Governance Committee, which met on the 21st of December and agreed to request that full council set up a contingency reserve £75,000 to support the delivery of key agreed work streams from the HR committee. This reserve is required to ensure that the council is able to meet its aspirations to have a council structure in place that's not only fit for purpose and the council we are now, but also fit for the future and the council we wish to be. Ian Milne and Councillor Gray have met to formulate the proposal in your papers, and I'm quite happy to take any questions if there are any, Chair. Thank you.
Moving silent, not a single hand raised. Anybody? Okay,
I have got a question.
okay, Councillor Hamilton.
Thank you. It's just to seek some clarification, please. On the appendix, there's a column entitled authority to use. Could you just clarify that heading, please?
Yeah, certainly, Councillor Hamilton. Basically, what that is when the reserves have been approved by council, it gives authority to spend those reserves without it having to come back to full council every single time that a drawdown needs to be done on those points which have been allocated.
Anybody else? Right, I think Jamie's. Okay, Councillor Taylor?
Can I just ask, at the bottom of page 2 in the paragraph, it says that those can do a complete review of reserves, which I think is absolutely fine, brilliant. I'm just wondering why this one's coming in ahead of the larger review that we're going to be doing on reserves. Is there any particular reason it's coming now rather
Councillor
than?
Gray, do you want to respond to that?
You're talking about the specific of creating this reserve ahead of a, yes.
Yeah.
The HR reserve was driven by the need of other things that are happening in the council. So we need the reserve to implement the HR strategy, which is already in train. So to wait for the fuller review of reserves would be too late. We literally need that money this month. And as you can see from the breakdown of the 75,000, we deliberately stayed away from anything that was, hybrid. We're not going to have hybrid meetings because they're not legal, so we don't need a reserve anymore. The Redlands reserve, you can see the note there, which is coming out of SIL, that was agreed by council. The others, the condition survey and Jubilee events are remnants of reserves that have not been used and are not likely to be used because they're the tail end of what was originally the reserve. And the vehicle procurement is the biggest reserve we've got. I mean, we've not spent any money on vehicles in this lifetime of the council, so fairly safe. But 75 was created in a low impact way, I would call it.
Okay, that's brilliant. Can I just ask another quick question on the Redland Reserve? If that was self-funded, are we okay to use it for non-self purposes? Although I appreciate it was allocated by full council.
Yes.
Is there anybody else who wants to say anything before I get changed, just quickly come back in?
Thank you, Chair. Spurred on by comments from Councillor Hamilton, it reminded me that I would like to propose an amendment to the recommendation to add in and delegate use of that reserve to the HR committee. That will mean that that reserve can be used in a timely manner and it won't need to be brought back to full council each time, but will be delegated to the HR committee, who are best placed to decide on the use of that reserve. Thank you, Chair. I've popped it up on the screen, the amendment you read. Thank you.
I'll propose it.
We've got a proposer, a seconder. Okay, all those in favour?
Is unanimous. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, moving on to something a bit more meaty, hopefully. The draft budget and precept. Officer Ian Mill, will you please introduce it?
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate that members here tonight will be as excited about the budget as I get every year. So I'll keep this introduction very brief for now, but obviously if there's any questions which members have, any clarification around any elements within the papers, then obviously I will answer those as and when is appropriate. The budgets have been formulated as in previous years by the use of the budget working group, which has met and scrutinised all the budgets as part of that process. Budget's also been considered by the Finance and Governance Committee, which met in December, and the papers which you will have in front of you for now reflect those recommendations which were made by the Finance and Governance Committee. We also, for the first time this year, Chair, had a Services Committee briefing in January on the request of the Chair of the Services Committee, which was a useful addition to the process. So that is where we are in terms of what's happened, Chair. So I'll just leave it now for the members to open the debate.
Anybody want to speak on this? Councillor Bradley?
Thank you. Sorry, can I just ask you a question? I know the recommendations are in two parts, which I understand. But interlinked. So does the budget have an element of the precept in? So in other words, is it assuming a rise in precept? You see what I mean? So they are linked up there because obviously it's a chicken and egg situation where we have a precept, we have a budget, and obviously the two must correlate in some way.
Absolutely, Councillor Bergman. So the process for the approving of the recommendations comes in two parts, and you have to do them one after the other. So the first part of that process will be the approving the actual budgets, which are as per the appendices, subject to any amendments which members may want to take tonight. And depending on any amendments to the budget, obviously that may affect the precept, which is the second recommendation taken separately after the budget review.
Does the budget assume a precept increase of 5%?
The budget information which members have will reflect the recommendation by consent as per the finance code.
Thank you.
Councillor Lang.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor, and your assistant, who I approve, by the way. I just don't like voting for him.
Nobody does.
I'm just voicing my opinion that I'm willing to accept anything from 3% upwards. There's a limit on the upwards, by the way, but 3% and upwards, because I want to see these two positions, the community development officer and the project officer being reinstated or being filled again. And to me, those two positions are critical to the way we function and our aspirations. In fact, both of those, if we don't have them, some of our aspirations would be knocked sideways, and I don't see any need to do that at the moment. So whatever else the reasons are, those positions will be retained at 3% or any higher increase level. And I'm just saying that I will be voting for a 3% or higher increase level when it comes to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gray?
Yes, I'll kick it off. As you all know, the subgroup met, and although I've said this at F&G, those members, Councillor Nickinson, Councillor Hamilton, Councillor Watley and Councillor Huckle, literally we went through every single line, and they're free to confirm that. It's no secret that my committee went against my view, which was we could go for a 3% increase and not 5%. And ostensibly, if you boil it right down, the difference between 3 and 5 is what we put in reserve. That's the difference. So under the 3% option, you can have the positions filled. Under the 5% option, you can have the budgets filled. What you can't have is a 3% increase and put £65,000 in reserve. So that's where the difference comes. Now, my reasoning for that, given I've been doing this for 3.5 years, is we have a healthy reserve position, very healthy reserve position. And in a time when things are tight, and let's be honest, the difference between the 3% option and the 5% option weekly is quite small. But is that a reason for voting for a larger increase? So we can take a little bit of a prudent approach to reserves by not putting the money in because we've got a healthy position and keep it to a 3%. That said, there were two contentious issues in both options. The two contentious issues were the reduction in the service for the RNLI, which accounted for £8,000 of the reduction from 38,000 to 30. And the reduction in the toilet facility opening hours. Now, there is Ryan, as Chair of Services, set up a small working group to look at the toilet, the reduction. We took £20,000 out of that budget because toilets cost us over £200,000 a year. So the budget put in under the 3% option and the 5% option was 180,000. That group, which I think is led by Councillor Furman, toilets, anybody? That group will make a recommendation back to full council as to what the service could be. So if they come back with a slightly higher or a slightly lower number, we could probably manage that within the finances. So really your debate today, given that we dismissed a 0, is whether you go for 5%, which I think is 74 pence, or 3%, which is 44, I think.
That's total amount.
Yes.
The increase would be 17 pence per week and 10 pence per week respectively.
So 17 pence for the 5% option and 10 pence for the 3% option. But my principle, when you can all see the numbers for the reserve. My principle is we've got a healthy reserve position, and let's not take what we don't need. Thank you.
On the end, I just got
Councillor
25 pence pay on the
Mr.
pension,
Farr.
being 80. So just about
You're
pay.
done speaking, thank you. Councillor Wakeling.
Sometimes.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I put this on my social media this week just to gauge public response. Why wouldn't you? And I got a fair response to it, actually. The response I didn't get, which slightly surprised me, was no one really said much about putting them up to where it was 2 years ago. That didn't bother people. The thing that people got upset about was the fact we were proposing to reduce the lifeguard service any amount. So my take from the feedback I got from residents is if we can adjust this to preserve that service, I think that would go a long way with our residents, because that's the one thing that I really took from the feedback I got from residents this week. So I don't know if I can make that a proposal that we can reinstate enough budget in the lifeguard line to reserve that service on this season.
If I may, Chair.
Yeah.
That with the, and the options is Councillor Gray says we are able to do that. Did you have any indication of how you were going to do that? Or would you just reduce the activity?
From the appendices we've got, I think we're putting 60k into reserves, so if we can reduce the amount we're putting into reserves by the amount of daily. I think on the current version is 5. Yeah, that's just okay.
Okay, so I've got councillor Berman seconding that proposal. I just want clarity. Should we take a vote on that? Love? Go for it.
We don't take the money out of reserves, because under the 3% option, we don't have that reserve. I'd like to take it out of the budget contingency reserve. So it's going to get complicated because we can have the RNLI and 3%. We can have that. I just want members to understand that. We don't need to vote for 5% to get the RNLI reinstated. We can have the 3%. The money can come out of the budget contingency, which is nothing. So if that's going to be, I will make another.
Can I quickly ask though, if you do that with, let's say, the cost of living crisis increasing everything, including the RNLI, probably the year up
Oh, yes.
ahead, would it be better to have that more money in reserve ready for when everything wakes up a little bit?
I think the RNLI is a good case of, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. I mean, they've indicated to me and us that the cost of that service is likely to rocket in the next 5 years. I think as a town council, we're going to have to look at smarter ways of keeping our beaches safe, whether that be technology or some sort of in-house provision. I don't know is the answer. If you're asking me now whether I want to think about the next iteration of this council and what we might put into the RNL, the answer is no.
Thank you. Okay, councillor Nicholson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm afraid I'm going to take a slightly different view on this. Some members may feel that this monthly increase is fairly insignificant, and it probably is to a lot of people, but I'm hearing a different story in Weymouth. I'm hearing a story about an awful lot of people having to rely on food banks this year. And if you have to rely on a food bank, I think you are in pretty dire straits. I just feel that any increase this year is not the way we should be going, is not the message we should be sending to those people who are really struggling this year. I've been through the review group with along with Councillor Gray and others. I looked at the figures. I've looked at it again in some detail. I just feel that, quite honestly, this council has got enough money to provide the services that it needs to provide, rather than necessarily the services it wants to provide this year. And I just feel that we should be looking more closely at those people this year who are really struggling and are likely to struggle this year because of the financial crisis that's been caused by the spread of COVID, and our friend Conway Putin has caused all sorts of problems to our energy reserves and energy supplies and energy costs. I don't think this is the time this year that we should be particularly any particular increase, and for that reason, I'm afraid I can't vote for a 5% increase because of that. So I just wanted to make my position, my personal position, totally clear on that, Chair.
Thank you. Before we move on, I just want to clarify that I have taken the proposal by Councillor Wakeling off the table because, as Councillor Gray clarified, we would get the RNLI whether we go 2% or 5%.
Yeah. Well, sorry, my amendment was to increase the RNLI budget sufficient that we can have the green cover this summer. and I was seconded.
Yeah.
Can we discuss that amendment and vote on it, please?
If you wish, but I will clarify that councillor Gray did come back and say if we voted 3% or 5%, we would still have that provision made.
Only if we transfer for reserves, though.
If the constitution says if there's a significant proposal, you have to
Yes.
debate
Okay.
and vote on it.
I'm going to get councillor Ian, officer Ian Mill to come in and just clarify that.
Chair, so if I can just hopefully provide an element of clarity rather than confusion. Maybe the case, but Councillor Gray is quite right, with the 3% and 5% options, we can reinstate the budget for the RNLI. If we just go back to when Councillor Bergman asked the question earlier about approving the budgets and approving the precepts, and they're done separately. What we will need to do, Chair, is although we are able to do that, we just need to amend the budget from what is in the appendices, because you approve the budgets first, and then you approve the precept after. So it just tidies everything up and it makes the budget.
We'd probably have to make that amendment.
Basically,
Yeah, okay, we're going with the amendment, okay. So we have a proposer and a seconder, so unless anybody wants to speak on the amendment,
I'm just gonna second it.
okay, all those in favour?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, Chair.
Those against?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Any abstentions?
1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Quickly.
Yeah, so that's an amendment. that we'll do it. Okay, so moving on with the amendment, we're not speaking on that anymore. I'm going to move on to councillor Huckle to speak on the draft budget.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I was actually going to talk about the RNLI, but anyway, not to worry about that. I mean, you need a proposer and a seconder for one of these two proposals. On the paper, we've got the one for the 5%, so I'm going to propose that now so that we can vote on it. Thank you.
Oh, budget as a whole. Yeah, budget as a whole. But, okay, we're proposing the budget as a whole. We have a seconder, councillor Frost. There are others that do wish to debate, so I will continue for a bit until we actually go to the vote now, because I do want people to be heard before we vote on it. So I'm going to say councillor Legg next.
Oh, thank you. I was going to ask David Gray a question, but it's answered because he voted on it already.
Okay, councillor Northern.
Thank you. I'll talk loudly. There we go. So, thank you. I would just like to say that last year we lowered our precept by 5%. This year we're raising our precept by 5%. Proposed. Sorry, the proposed recommendation is to raise it by 5%, which will take us back to the same position. But the important bit to remember is that inflation has hit this year very badly. As you read in the report, there's effectively 9–10%. So without the work that's been done to cut back on some of the costs, this would have been a cut. And if we went for 0%, it would result in a cut in services. So I'm still minded to go for 5%, but I continue to listen to the debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to come back on any of that? Okay. Oh, councillor Gray.
Just a little inaccuracy there in Councillor Norman's statement, which is there is no difference in service between 3% and 5%. There is no difference. The difference is in what goes to reserve. So we can maintain all services at 3% and all services at 5%. So there are no cuts in service. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much. I think the Chair and FG just told part of what I was going to say between the difference and why I couldn't support a 5% proposal. And you know, those that know me here know I'm trying not to be political, especially in this chamber. However, you know, I'm very sympathetic to my Conservative friends who are sat behind me in the fact that they don't want to raise the precept at all. And I'd love for the fact for a fourth year that this council could have set a budget either a reduction or a 0%. As we've successfully done through good financial management, and that's both members scrutinising and officers. However, we are in challenging times, very challenging times. And whilst I understand Councillor Nicholson's points that an increase of 74p or 44p based on the banding, depending which proposal we take, will hit our residents, it's not a life-changing amount. That 44p a month is not going to be the difference between somebody using a food bank or not. It's the ever rises that are coming and the ever cost of living, everything else associated with the cost of living crisis that will do that. But because of the situation we're in, what is important to our residents are our services. And obviously, our services and what we provide here as a town council is important to me, which is why I put myself forward to chair our services committee. And it was at that point that I asked for the additional briefing this year, which I'd like to thank members for attending, those that did. And there was those absent, and those absent are the ones that are objecting the proposals put forward by this council this evening already. But our services are going to be important to our residents this year. Our residents will be using our parks and open spaces, our beaches more, as the cost of living crisis hits them. Those that would usually holiday abroad all around the country won't be able to afford to. A week stay in Spain? No. A day's visit to Weymouth Beach. It's important that we maintain our services and our facilities to a high standard this year, which is why I will be proposing, when hopefully the 5% is lost, the 3% option. Because with the 3%, we can maintain services to a level that we need to maintain services to. And it will also enable us, as Councillor Legg has already said this evening, to reinstate within the budget those two positions to support our most vulnerable residents of the community with the community development work and project officer work. So I'm actually going to be voting against the 5%. Hopefully I'll get the opportunity to vote the 3% to maintain services to their current level without putting extra into reserves that's not needed. And I sort of think those that are looking at the 5%, hope that you have something within your debate this evening that can sway you. You need that additional money for something. Because I've not seen through financing and the budget working group and the services where that extra 2% is required. I'd just like to finish by thanking Councillor Gray as Chair of Finance and Governance and his sub-budget working group for the good work that they've done here. It is already alluded to by Councillor Northam. 9% inflation. But we're not asking for 9% to maintain our services, we're asking for 3%. And that just proves the good work that this council is doing and and its good control on financial management.
Yeah, we all agree with you, Councillor Hay. I think on appraising the hard work that Councillor Gray and those in the budgeting team have put into this. Councillor Barrett.
Say many of the things that Councillor Holmes just said, so I wouldn't go on that and start repeating them all. I just like to say I completely agree with everything he just said. You can put 3% proposal forward on the second. And I think the only thing I would like to say is the amounts of money that we're talking about putting it up may not be significant. We've got a position of leadership in the community. And at a cost of living crisis time, we cannot seem to be doing anything which is going to take money from our residents, which we don't have to do. And Councillor Gray made the point that we have 3%, we can maintain services, and all that's going to be changed the amount of money that goes into the reserves. So I think 3% is where we should be going. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ferrari.
Thank you, Chair. Can I also pass my thanks on to Councillor Gray and the Finance Committee? I think this is a very full insurance I've seen from the Town Council organisation. For the avoidance of doubt, if we end up talking about 3%, I'll be arguing and voting against that as well. But that's not what we're voting on now. We're voting on 5%. And can I reinterpret what people have said? What we are saying to the residents of Weymouth is that we don't need this money. We're just putting it in our back pocket in case we end up skint one day in the future. And I don't care if you skint today, you've got to pay us because we want to make sure that we're safe in the future. I think that's an intolerable position to be presented to our residents. And I'll clearly vote against 5%. Thank you.
I'm just going to quickly say something there, is that sometimes when we put money into reserve, it might be to actually support communities and people who aren't.
Point of order, Chair. The chair does not have the right of reply to every speaker. The chair has the right to speak to any other councillor.
I haven't replied to every speaker. I have
We have the right
to speak
reply
at
to-
that point. I have a right to speak at that point, councillor Ferrari.
You do not have the right to reply to any speaker. You have exactly the same right as councillor.
Sorry, we shaped.
Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to stick along the lines that most people seem to be speaking at the moment, which is 2%. And I know that isn't on the table at the moment of the proposal. I don't think it's right that we should be putting money into reserve at the moment. But what I do want to talk about is the desperate need for community development and community development working within Weymouth. I find it was interesting, my colleague on the right was saying that when people are really strapped for cash, we shouldn't be taking extra money off them. I think that basically shows a lack of understanding of what community development is. Certainly in my area of Weymouth, I am working extremely hard trying to form a community together, as are the other councillors from Western. But the biggest problem we've got is there's nobody coordinating it. It was around what the community development was, with just a little bit of time for that sort of role would be out of this world. I talk to so many people and we're all trying to do the same thing, but there's nobody pulling it together. And the community doesn't have the strength to pull it together, because when you've got kids who you're struggling to feed, when you've got health problems, when you're struggling because you're on low salary, when you're in a private rented place so the rent is going up, you don't have an additional capacity to do that and to work within your community yourself. So just that little bit of money from this council to put somebody in that post to support communities, not only in Western, but right across Weymouth, I think is vital at the moment because of the situation we're in. So with that, I'm very adamant that I would like to replace the role of community development worker that we lost just over a year ago. And I will support 3%. I can't support 5% because that is putting money into our reserves that we don't need at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Taylor. Councillor Bergman.
Thank you. Just from a personal point of view, like Councillor Wakeling, I took some soundings. Now, mine won't be as extensive as this because I'm not on Facebook. Although no apologies for not being on Facebook, by the way. And everybody I spoke to felt there is a motivational factor in actually asking our residents to pay more. And I know it's not a lot more, but there is a factor, a feel-good factor or motivational factor because of the challenges in cost of living at the moment. And certainly the feedback I've had, and again, it's not as extensive as Luke's, is that we should be declaring a 0% precept and not putting our precept up. Partly on the basis that nevertheless we still have a £3 million turnover, in excess of £3 million turnover budget. So there will be ways to ensure that we provide services, and I agree with Councillor Taylor in the fact that we need to provide good services, but they could be valued and certainly I go back to the motivational factor of people thinking we're on their side. We don't want a cost of an increase in precept. One person said to me, every penny counts. It's minimal, but sometimes it does. So for me, I would prefer a 0%.
Thank you, councillor Bowman. Councillor Bow.
Firstly, thank you for the kind welcome tonight. Everyone's been very welcoming and it's nice to join you this evening. I'm lucky enough to work at one of the local secondary schools, and as part of my job, I interact with large numbers of parents across my school week, across the months. And one thing I think we've got to consider is the stress levels within the community at the moment. Both literally in terms of finances, but also emotional stress has been caused by everything that's on the news, or cutbacks, or prices rising. There is undoubted stress amongst the community. I am leaning towards a 3% position. I think it's important to maintain the services. I think Councillor Hope raised some key points. Staycations are going to increasingly be a thing. We are a tourist town, being able to maintain services at a good level, to maintain that side of the local industry to a high standard, really important. I unfortunately am speaking to increasing numbers of parents who are really struggling. Emotional, speaking to me down the phone, wondering how they're putting food on the table the next week. So it's a balance of the things. My position will be 3% if we reach that point in the discussion. I think we cannot be taking money from people simply to put it in reserve. That's inappropriate at this particular juncture. So my position will be to go for 3% if that becomes part of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Bow. Well done, by the way. It's scary, isn't it, first time, but you did it. Councillor Huckle.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I feel that we've actually really been looking for an amendment to the proposition to allow us to vote on 3%, because if we go straight to 5 and it goes through, you won't have had a chance to vote on 3. And I believe somewhere amongst all the papers, the figures are all there, which shows how the 3% is achieved, which we obviously have to agree to those figures. And within those figures, the manipulation of the 8,100 for the RNLI can be made. So I'll leave it to somebody to perhaps propose an amendment.
Speak on. Ian, do you want to speak on that?
I will, Chair. If you're asking if members would like to put the 3% proposal forward, and you're looking just for clarification as to what that would mean in terms of the budget. So we have the budget amendment, then I can certainly outline those, Chair, so that members know what they're voting for with, but the implications of the 3%.
I also would need to right now clarify if councillor Huckle would want to withdraw the proposal for 5%.
No, I'm waiting for somebody to propose an amendment.
The procedure is, there's been a proposal, there can be an amendment proposed. And that amendment, as I suggest it now, be 3%. The leave 5% in that proposal, replace it with 3%. And this is seconded.
Yeah, okay. So just for clarity, if you look at the recommendations that are currently up on the screen, they do not include a percentage figure. The budget that you have got to now, as amended by the earlier amendment, if you wish to deliver that budget that is in front of you now, that is the Precept number you will need to agree as well. That is based on a 5%. If you wish to look at a 3% increase in the Precept, you're looking at a Precept amount of £3,348,840, which requires you to find £65,050 to trim off the budget somewhere. You need to agree a budget in the first place, and that dictates the Precept.
And that money can come from the money we will put in reserve, which Ian can put up on the screen to show members. So I would like to propose that Ian amend the 5 to 3, demonstrating to members where the 65,000 outstanding can come to, which will be nothing goes into reserve, maintaining all other services, including reserves for inflation busting contingency, which if it goes on the screen, you will see that.
I'm sorry to be
Okay.
a bit pain chair, but it doesn't, because we voted an amendment for 8K for the now.
Yes.
It's only 57.
Yeah, it does, and I think Ian can handle that.
Okay, can I just quickly say, we've got one more person, one more councillor to speak on this, and then we could get voting on everything, and changing and amending. And it gives Ian a chance to actually put together what you.
Sorry, Chair. I think the councillor Huckle's making is if we go with the way that the proposals will go, which is 5% first, and that goes through, those of us who want to vote on 3 won't have the opportunity to do that. So I think that's what he was saying, that we probably need to take them the other way around.
Well, we'll work on that first, or I'm going to let councillor Hamilton speak. And as the last sort of speaker on this budget.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Firstly, I'd like to join everyone who's congratulated Councillor Gray and Ian Milne and the team on this process. It was real fine-tooth comb stuff. And also the report is very, very clear. I find Councillor Gray's argument, supported by others, that we don't need to be putting money aside. I find that very compelling. However, I'm here as a last-ditch representative for the 5%. Because 5% simply takes us back to where we started in 2019. 5% allows us to continue to build up prudent reserves, and 5% needs unpacking. It might sound like an important point of principle, and I do recognise that every penny counts. Most of our properties are band B, and so the difference between 3%, which would be a monthly increase of 34 pence, and 5%, which would be a monthly increase of 57%, is your victory of saving your residents, our residents, 23 pence a week. I recognise every penny counts, and I know that there are families out there who are facing challenges the like of which none of us should have to face. There is recourse to the local council tax support scheme. What I think this council has done so well in its first term is to build up prudent reserves. And as this year starts, I think the challenges remain enormous on situations that we don't have in our control, as you've mentioned, the war and things like that. And I'm going to speak for 5% because that's still a real terms cut. Our officers work really hard to maintain services. And I think it's a challenge for all of us. It is seriously cheap politics to come to this chamber or to write in the letters page time and again attacking this council for putting up its Precept. When in fact, we've had a Tory government in power since 2010 over the country as a whole. Funding to local services through local government has been cut by 60%. Other councils get money from the government, Dorset doesn't. Other councils benefit from business rates. We're not so well equipped in that sense. Like many other seaside towns, we have an elderly population who are well protected on the council tax front. So you have to decide, when you put yourself up as a town councillor and as a county councillor, what are you coming into this job to do? To protect local services and to deliver local services, I believe, to make effective use of money, which our council has time and again received plaudits for. I want to hear everyone in this chamber speaking up for public services, speaking up for our green spaces, speaking up for the neighbourhood plan, which Councillor Northam is leading a team of residents, because the government has dismantled planning laws. We are having residents to put together planning policies. So if you come into life as a councillor, what are you doing here? I'm fed up of hearing Dorset councillors say, I have to do what's best for all of Dorset. I want our Weymouth Dorset councillors to do what's best for Weymouth. And please do not deceive your residents that a 5% increase of a Precept is anything like a 4% increase for Dorset Council, because it's not. A 5% increase is 57 pence a month on a band B. And if you're going to be a councillor, recognise that local authorities deliver essential services, and we have to be promoting that service to our residents, and we have to encourage everyone to work together to pay for them. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Hamilton. I'm going to quickly slip in councillor Dickinson. Very happy to speak to you for that.
It's just to ask Ian and David, is the buildings budget in there? In any of the budgets, is the building budget in the schedule of work that we need to do on budget on buildings?
The schedule of work isn't ready yet because it's not due till March.
We don't know how much that's going to be.
We don't know how much that's going to be. There is a buildings dilapidation budget in there. I can't off the top of my head remember what it is. And given that we spent, the 65k on this building to bring it up to health and safety standards, we'll face those challenges in the future. But we're healthy in terms of reserves, so I'm sure.
So we could have a 0% then if we're healthy. Well, you just said it.
I think in terms of the 0%, because there is no 0% option in these papers, let's be clear about that. F&G debated it and felt that it was too risky, which so we dismissed.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I am finished. I hope everything's okay with that. Lots of drama today, council. No need to throw your drink, councillor Gray. So I just want to say I am closing discussions now. I think you should go to a form of voting, either on the amendment or Officer Ian, will you please? Yeah, sorry.
Just to provide some clarity of what, because again, apologies for repeating myself. You need to approve the budgets followed by the 3%. So this is the effect of the 3% increase on the budgets. And you'll notice already that we've increased the RNLI by the 8,100 already, Chair. And because of the way this is set up, makes it quite easy.
Can you just highlight that so that people can see, everybody can see? It says contributions to earmarked reserves, others. So that's the 5% number.
So that becomes 0, Chair. The Precept becomes 3,488.40, and the inflation contingency to be reduced by the 8,100, which is because of the RLA high budget is payment. So that's the effect on the budget. If members want to know what the budget would look like, there's a 3% increase.
And for clarity, you need to approve, I know this has been said, I know it's in your papers, but I really must be very, very clear about this because it isn't financial requirement and it will be picked up by audit if we get this the wrong way around. You must approve a budget and then approve the Precept amount.
Can you just, for clarity, tell us what the number is for 3%, if that's what we're both voting on? 344, 334, 840.
And we'll depending on the outcome of the recommendation, that's great. Then I'm sure the town clerk will amend the recommendation.
Yeah, fine. Got it.
Chair, procedurally, we should be voting on the amendment of the 5% to the 3% before we vote on the substantive of the 3%. Because Colin raised an amendment which we haven't yet voted on. So the issue we are currently debating is 5% rise. So we need to process Colin's amendment, change it to 3, then vote on the 3.
That's what we do. Fair point. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. We're doing that.
Because of the need to vote on the budget prior to voting on the precept amounts, if someone were to recommend, to propose and second and vote on this budget, if this budget was agreed, it dictates a 3% increase.
What budget are you referring to when you say this budget?
The one I'm pointing to up on the screen.
What's the figure?
348,840.
Yeah, that's the precept. You're not voting on that now.
That's been amended.
You
however.
need to vote on the
Yeah, I know.
budget first, and if you agree this budget, it dictates a 3% increase. So if you didn't support a 3% increase, you wouldn't be supporting this budget. This budget reflects the 3% increase.
Okay.
So I just want to make sure that procedurally, you don't get caught out at an audit stage.
Can I suggest, procedurally, that we should vote on the amendments to this budget to reflect the 3%, and then we vote it to get a budget that is actually this budget that we want, and precept comes out of that.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. Yeah, come on. You need us to say, I propose a budget of £3,348,840 to go into, to be an amendment to the number that appears in item 1 recommendation.
No, because that's not the budget.
Come on.
Okay, Councillor, I'm going to get things order here. I'm going to have Councillor Gray chat on this a little bit, and then I'm going to get clarity from the officers so that we know exactly what we are going to be voting on.
Procedurally, yeah, councillor Ferrari is right, but it depends on which one trumps the other as the more important. I'm tending to agree. There's no harm in us voting an amendment from councillor Hull. There's no harm in doing that, because all we're saying is we're not going to vote on 5, we're voting on 3. Then we go, once that happens, that's done then, and we're talking about the 3, then we can go, it just tidies everything up so that there's no, one doesn't trump the other. This is more important for the auditors, but from a council point of view, voting an amendment is more important.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It may make sense. As your responsible financial officer, I just need to point out that you must vote a budget before you vote on a precept amounts. If somebody were to.
No, we're voting to debate 3%. We're not voting for 3%.
The amendment will then, Colin's amendment will then be debated.
Which we've already done there.
Colin, there's only proposed to be debated.
If Ian's happy, I will defer to Ian's greater financial knowledge. I remain slightly. Go with Councillor Hupple's amendment.
Sorry, it wasn't my amendment. I did.
I made the amendment.
Yeah, and it's whatever.
Someone propose it.
With the tweak that has been done about the 8,100, is that 3,348,840 the right figure now?
Yes.
For a 3%.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to get Officer Ian Milne to just feedback to us his thoughts on us actually voting on an amendment.
But we've been debating something that we haven't amended. Yeah. That's what council is to be. You know, which withdraw is the horse comes. Then we can prepare on that budget, which is free. You have to. Because they're seeing.
Okay, Councillor.
In the order to try and get us back on track, can I propose the budget as written on the screen up there, which will give the RLNI its additional funding and base the budget on that budget is based on the 3% increase. Now, I can't propose that now. Can I please ask across the floor for the proposer of the 5% budget to withdraw his proposal? And then we can propose that as a substantive and make it. All right.
Welcome away.
I don't think I have to, because, well, I'm just proposing amendment, but I'll do that. If it makes the town clerk, if it's easier.
Okay, I'm going to ask Officer Ian Milne to speak, please.
Chair, this is how I would see what we need to do is what I would suggest is the members agree the amendments to the budget.
Yeah.
And then they can, debate whether that becomes a final substantive motion. Because percentages do confuse things slightly. If the proposal is to amend the budget as they are on the screen, that can be debated and then voted on. And then if members agree to these budgets, then that's the budget which form recommendation, which then we.
Okay.
Councillor Huckle withdrew his 5%. So minutes reflect that, please, that he's withdrew. You might bring it back, but he's.
For is a proposer and a seconder for an amended budget that is behind me. Councillor Gray and Councillor Hope. Okay, all those in favour?
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Those against?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Any abstentions?
1. Chairman has the casting vote.
I'm going to go with those who spent the most amount of time on this budget, Councillor Gray, and I will go with I will vote in favour.
Now we've got frequent budget town proposed.
Your effort has paid off, Councillor Gray.
So that's the amendment to the budget agreed.
Can we vote on the substantive motion, please?
That is the.
Now you've got this. I've got it proposed.
I'm
sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, propose the budget.
Okay, so we have the proposed budget as a whole, as it is. Councillor Furman, do we have a seconder?
Yeah.
Councillor Gray, I'm going to take a vote on this, so all those in favour?
Can I just ask procedurally, do we have to have a recorded vote for budget?
No.
So all vote, this is voting in favour. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Those against?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
And any abstentions?
That's 23, that's 23. So that bump is carried.
No casting vote required.
Thank goodness you.
Gary, 4, 8. 4, 0. So we're now on to part 2, Chair.
Okay, does Councillor Gray want to propose a 3%?
Hang on, it's not a percentage. It needs to be. If you could just give me 1 moment whilst I.
We're doing it in figures.
It has to be, so just for clarity, the vote on precept has to be the actual figure amount. That actual figure amount is on the screen now as recommendation 2, and the recommended amount for the precept is £3,348,840. Ian, can you just nod that I've got that right? So based on the budget you have agreed, this is the precept figure you require to deliver that.
Councillor Gray,
Approve.
oh, you proposing
I'm
it?
proposing it.
You taking in seconds there? Okay, I'm going to take a vote on this. All those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
All those against?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Any abstentions?
That's a habit, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on now into the draft advertising policy, and I'm going to get Tommy to actually introduce it. Hopefully. Before you see the appendix,
Before you see an appendix F, you have a draft policy regarding advertising. This is a recommendation to full council by the Finance and Governance Committee that discussed this on the 27th of December. It's important that we have an advertising policy, and across our assets, we have a number of advertising opportunities. If you have any questions, please ask. If not,
Do you have any questions? Oh, Councillor Lane.
I fully support it as it is printed. I'm sorry to vote.
Councillor Wakeling.
I'm sorry to delay things. I wish to mind a point. And I thank you to Finance Governance for discussing it. I'm very sorry I was absent that night, but I was extremely ill. The recommendation to Finance Governance was to include, well, sorry, there was a proposal that was seconded and recommended, which was to include the line from any organisation involved in coal, oil or gas production or distribution. I notice in the draft we have in front of us that line has been somewhat truncated down to just 2 words. I don't recall, I watched the YouTube feeding, it wasn't actually discussed. So I'm not sure why the recommendation, the F&G's vote.
It was discussed and it was agreed to include it in the policy, which is why it's in the draft.
Can I ask why it went from a 12-word thing to a 2-word thing? Because it's slightly different to what was actually suggested.
I would need to, we voted to include it, but not necessarily the exact wording. If you wish to propose an amendment.
I would like to then. So I would like to propose, if we could get it on screen, please, Jane. Thank you for the F&G discussing it. The option to include was where it says fossil fuels on there. The original was from any organisation involved in coal, oil or gas production or distribution. That is subtly different. It just means they can't greenwash and advertise their other services. They have a sort of habit of doing this. I did notice, I watched the video and Councillor Dickinson raised a point that certain companies are researching what they call sustainable aviation fuel. There's absolutely nothing sustainable about it. But they're very keen to advertise these kind of things and promote that they're not big bad oil company, they're doing some good for the world. So the original wording I had suggested this is actually would stop them actually greenwashing their adverts and putting out these somewhat misleading messages that they're actually doing some good. I would like to make as a proposal that we actually change the wording to what was originally suggested. The reason is, yeah, morally, we don't want to take their money. We've declared a climate emergency, so we shouldn't take their money. But also, ethically, we don't want them putting out some of these messages that coal and oil aren't that bad, really, which is what they do try and do. So I'd like to make that proposal, please.
I'm assuming that Councillor Lambert might want to second that. Okay, so all those in favour of this amendment? Do you want to debate? Okay, Councillor Nicholson?
Yeah, what I'm just a bit concerned about is that whilst we might agree that that is not acceptable, there are organisations that are involved in that do other things. I mean, there are British Gas, I think Shell provide internet services, which I don't think you can say has got anything to do with that type of service. But they, as a company, they provide, say, other services. So are you saying that they are unable to advertise their internet service or that sort of thing? Because I think this is quite a dangerous thing to be limiting those sort of companies to things which are, don't have any particular impact. So I just think we've got to be a bit careful here that we make this so broad that those services which are quite legitimately to be advertised might fall under that heading.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Okay, Councillor Barrow.
Sorry, it's really picky, but your amendment will also stop any company involved in the production of hydrogen.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, no, hydrogen is going to be one of those potential things in the future.
May I come back? Well, Yes, technically, if they're producing grey hydrogen from cracking gas, no, about green, blue hydrogen. Well, yeah, blue hydrogen from water, no, that will be fine, but hydrogen from what's called grey hydrogen, where they're cracking gas and releasing the carbon in it, that's actually really bad for the environment too. So I have absolutely no qualms of banning adverts for grey hydrogen. Yeah, there are many different grades of hydrogen, and there's a whole rainbow of hydrogens. But yeah, the hydrogen that comes from natural gas is actually really bad for the environment, which is principally where hydrogen comes from. And yeah, I don't personally have a problem with saying they can't advertise that on our assets.
Do you want to include that in your amendment?
I think it's sufficient.
Okay. Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you for watching the YouTube and taking notes of what I say. Look, that's very good of you. So when British Gas want to advertise that they're offering free insulation, they can't on the Your Amendment because they're a gas distributor. That's why I think it's too broad, and that's why I won't support that amendment at all. And there is great movement going on with Shell and all these companies. They are making progress. And I disagree with what you're saying altogether on that, but I think fossil fuels would have been suffice up there because they do lots of other work and support other businesses. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, we've got okay, back to Councillor Nicholson.
I think the wording on this is wrong. What we should be saying is that it's not from any organisation. It's an organisation actually advertising that particular service of providing gas or fossil fuel, rather than saying that an organisation that might be involved in it, but which is advertising different services, is quite acceptable to take their advertising as instead. You know, there are companies like British Gas that are offering free insulation. These are things that are worthy, and we shouldn't cut those companies out purely and simply because one of their other objects is coal gas distribution. I think that's not right. We've got to be a bit more specific. It's far too broad. Thank you.
Councillor Toft.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd just like to say that I feel that companies like Shell and BP have so much revenue that being denied access to a bit of advertising in Weymouth because we have principles is not actually going to harm them at all. So, you know, I think we should stick with our principles. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Toft.
I'm again backing the proposal and second that this is amendment should be as it stands, saying fossil fuel. By saying that Shell or BP could insulation is part of the point of why we want to ban them, because what they're doing there is greenwashing. They are an organisation dedicated to burning fossil fuels. They might spend 1% trying to greenwash themselves. We shouldn't be doing we. The worst one I saw was out in London was a BP advert for an exhibition at the British Museum on sunken cities. And the irony of that, a firm which is filling the planet with carbon dioxide, raising the sea levels, and is going to be causing the sunken cities. We shouldn't fall for it. So you can vote on this amendment. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to go to the vote now. So the amendment as it's written up behind me, from any organisation involved in coal, oil and gas distribution. We have a proposer and a seconder, so I'm going to go for all those in favour.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
Those against?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Any abstentions? Thank you.
So the amendment is
To the amendment. The amendment is carried. So now we're going to go back to the draft advertising policy. And I believe I had a proposal from Councillor Legg. Do we have a seconder? Do we want to debate this anymore? Because we've got a seconder, Councillor Brooks. Okay, all those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21.
Those against?
2.
Any abstentions? Okay, moving on. We now have the Civility and Respect pledge, which Jane will introduce.
Thank you, Chair. I will just bring the agenda back up. Thank you, Chair. The National Association of Local Councils now and Society of Local Council Clerks, SLCC, have been working with to represent Wales, One Voice Wales, to ensure that civility and respect are at the top of our sector's agenda and to start a culture change for the local council sector. This item is to ask the council to state its commitment to that culture change and to respect in general across our sector. Whilst as it's clear in the report, I hope that currently the council does not have an issue in this area. Civility and respect should be at the heart of public life across the sector as a whole. The intimidation, abuse, bullying and harassments of councillors and staff in person or online is unacceptable, whether by councillors, staff or the public. This can prevent councils from functioning effectively. It can prevent councillors from representing local people effectively, and it can discourage people from getting involved, including in people standing for election. It can also undermine public confidence and trust in local democracy. I'm sure we can all recall examples of poor behaviour that we've seen online or in the news in recent years. By our council signing up to the Civility and Respect Pledge, we are demonstrating that our council is committed to treating councillors, employees, members of the public, representatives of partner organisations, volunteers with civility and respect in their roles. As I said, the council currently does not have any issues that need addressing in this area. However, it is very important that councils join together and show our fellow councils in the local government sector that we support them and that we also support this work stream, including the development of sanctions. The pledge builds on the Code of Conduct, and just to remind you, the Code of Conduct applies only to councillors, and it also strengthens our commitment to the core values of civility and respect. You'll see in the report itself, the actual statements in the Civility and Respect Pledge are listed. So I won't go through those individually. This has been to Finance and Governance and is recommended to full council from Finance and Governance. Happy to respond to any questions, Chair.
Thank you, Jane. Okay, Councillor Northern.
Thank you. I was thinking to myself, why is this coming to full council when, as far as I'm aware, we already have such policies in place. We've already had our training with respect to the Nolan principle and such like. And I can see this is all good worthy stuff, but I'm not quite sure why we need to sign up to support NALC in this respect. As a council, I feel that we've already made these pledges. So I don't know whether to approve it because it's not going to make a difference as we already have things in place, or to debate it and keep people here longer, which I'm loath to do. So I can stop at this point.
Option one.
Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in principle, I support this. My only slight concern about this is this question of sanctions for elected members where appropriate. At the end of the day, I think the only people that should have sanctions against elected members are those people who elect them, because I think it's very dangerous to set out a system where councils could be, I don't know quite what the word sanctions means. Does it mean you should remove them? I don't know, but I think that in a democratic process, those sanctions should be those that are set by people who elect it, rather than councils trying to force out elected members, if that's what it means. But it's very vague. But you said that, and I think I support the overall tenor of this.
Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much. I'll play on the case. It's fine. But I think I repeat what I said at Finance and Governance again. I can't believe we're actually seeing this before us. This is all very common sense, which I'm sure every member of this council acts and follows, not just because of a code of conduct, because it's the right thing to do. And part of me slightly disappointed this is what now bringing before us, and what I think from now, obviously now to do more to ensure, that everyone in our community can stand forward for election, whether that be to support carers allowance for town councils, and more things like that. Disappointment now, see why it's here, it's the right thing to do, and I'm happy to vote for it.
Councillor Dickinson.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. At the moment, we're all signed up to the Councillors' Code of Conduct with the 7 known principles. We've all signed up to that. We don't need another one. And I will vote against this because I just think it's just wordy. If you're going to any councillors cause a problem, this is the Code of Conduct that will be brought against them, shall we say, and that's what goes up to Dorset Council, not an Alex representation. It's just all wordy stuff, and I can't support it.
Okay, I'm going to assume that most of you probably have made up your minds about how to vote on this, so I'm just going to go straight to vote. Do I have a proposer or a seconder? Nobody even wants to propose a seconder. Councillor Hamilton?
I'd like to propose it, please.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Tosh. Okay, let's go to the vote on this. So all those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
All those against?
1, 2.
Any abstentions?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Sorry, does that add up?
23.
So you'll come back, you have to be nice now. Okay, that moves us on to the last part of our agenda, which is information items only. Jane, anything on that?
Thank you, Chairman. On the actions from last meeting, there is only one, just to update you, we're still waiting for instructions from solicitors who are acting for the current landowners. We've been waiting several months. I continue to chase. I continue to wait, and will continue to chase until we don't need to wait any longer. It's with them. We can do nothing more to speed that along, but to reassure you, they're getting regular chasing emails from me. Looking at the full plan, you'll see that the Services Committee coming up is extremely busy, lots on there. Finance and Governance coming up in February. Will also include an updated grant policy following on from comments at the last Finance and Governance. And then the next full council in February, we will be bringing forward the risk management and internal controls document. As you're aware, this is an annual requirement for audit as well as best practice that we look at our risk management. Okay.
Councillor Gray?
2 minor points. I was at services on the 18th, but can you just remind me about the station gateway park options? Have we got any further with negotiations to hand over? Because what I'm concerned about is that that's going to come with a cost, and we've already agreed to budget, and there's nothing in the budget. So I'm just checking that I said we're not taking this unless you give us some money.
We haven't heard anything more about that. We wait an update. This is something slightly different that has been brought to us by Dorset Council for members to consider. And I shan't spoil the surprise.
Okay, so it's not the big.
It's not about us.
The shiny signs that are in. Right, okay. My second question is just checking within on the F&G meeting on 1st of February, Q3 budget monitoring. Have we agreed that the debtors list will always be in the quarterly pack?
I don't think it's been formally agreed, but it's as the assumption.
Yes, can I ask them that it either goes on as a separate item or is included in Q3? Because my committee members will definitely want to see an update on the debtors list.
Hey, Councillor Hayden.
Thank you very much. First of all, can I just ask Councillor Grace that he's been to the future meeting of the Service Committee? You can let me know how it goes. I'm afraid that you can give me minutes ahead of the meeting. It'd be much appreciated and help me see the way through, which I know is going to be a very exciting and trying to think of the 2 words. Hang on, sir. Second of all, you have killed my mic. Don't like that. Second of all, I just note the next full council meeting, apparently you're having the draft seafront master plan come forward.
bit of myth why that's not coming to services, first of all, there's been several requests to have it there.
Yeah.
Shelley?
I can come in here, it is on services and then a couple of items that appear to be missing from the board plan. I'm sure you, it will be on dispatch next week, tomorrow when dispatch takes place.
Long meeting. It's on the 18th.
If I could just remind members that the forward plan, as it says on the agenda, is not a definitive list, and it is subject to regular change, amendment and revision, and it's a snapshot of the forward plan at the time of dispatch, which was a week ago. Thank you.
Councillor Northern.
I have a question, if I may, which is my new colleague who would like to come along to the next service meeting. Is he able to, or does he have to have a full council to vote on it?
He's replacing councillor.
Winter. He's replaced councillor Winter.
Formal revisions to the membership of any committee has to come to full council.
So could we vote at this full council?
No, because it's not on the agenda, councillor.
So he's going to miss out another meeting when he was elected on the 5th of December. I don't find that very satisfactory.
Just bring one point of order. Should we not suspend standing orders on that account, please? Because I do think it's wrong that that is not on the agenda today.
It wasn't proposed to put on the agenda. We haven't been formally notified. And you can't suspend standing orders for an entire meeting. Otherwise, none of your decisions will stand legally.
No, suspend standing orders for the next item on it, which is going to be introduced now.
Yeah.
If an item isn't on the agenda, it can't be discussed and voted on.
Might we ask why it hasn't been brought forward when the councillor was elected on the 5th of December?
That doesn't come from town.
Because we haven't been formally notified of any changes to the committee membership. It's not for officers to assume.
I understood, and I can't quote, that Harris had written to you on that matter.
Councillor Gray, I will check records on that.
As a compromise, can we just ask Matt to come along to services, although he hasn't got voting rights, if he just come along, or a meeting. Let's just not spend too much time on it. We know whatever.
Anyone ill? So you put an agenda item on that committee's agenda to suspend the standing orders to allow him to.
Okay, thank you.
No biggie. Let's get on with it.
And